Buddy, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. I'm at a more reasonable time, but I've done that by staying up basically for, probably 26 hours, so I would say we are setting ourselves up for a crash in energy at the end of the stream, but I needed to do that, so we'll see if this works. Let's see. I guess for the accountability section, I don't have anything to talk about, really. I spent a lot more time, not really a lot more time, but more time than I should have, working on the Xsense Smart Life / Smart Life. Xsense is actually really just a rebranding, rebadging, relabeling of a Smart Life to Wi-Fi smoke detector. It turns out DDWRT literally has a setting in its Wi-Fi settings that says disable this disable this for an 80 ESP 8266, or it says just 8266. And I always took that to mean if somehow you were running DDWRT on an 8266, which I never really questioned as much as I probably should have. But no, actually, you have to disable this for that specific chip to be able to connect to Wi-Fi on the router. And oddly, when you disable that setting, it just disappears. And there's no way to enable it. So I can only assume that it was at one point a setting that mattered, or that they were experimenting with, since DDWRT custom router firmware is always beta and experimental code, and they probably just realized it wasn't worth even exposing that as an option to most users. And so, yeah, as soon as I tweaked that, which was probably about the 100th, if not 1000th tweak I did to finally try and figure out how to get it to work, the Wi-Fi router would, no, the Wi-Fi smoke detector would connect. So I've got it working. I think now maybe it has since lost connection because I turned back on the 5 gigahertz band of Wi-Fi. That is possible. I guess we're going to play a Swordcraft or Bloodcraft. I guess we'll, again, do these arenas with things we don't want to play, so just do Bloodcraft. Since you're not going to win, or I'm not going to win on the arenas anyways, I might as well just see if I get a free victory. So I may have to change the SSID, the name of the Wi-Fi network, for the 5 gigahertz band, which I don't think really matters that much, really. See, I think there was some weirdness with 802.11n where you were supposed to have the same SSID for both the 5 gigahertz and the 2.4 gigahertz network, but I think there is a pretty good argument to not do that and just potentially lose out on some speed for anything that's 802.11n. In general, the one thing I think I would emphasize more than anything is that when I was taking a networking class when I was in school, a Cisco networking class centered around being CCNA certified, Cisco certified network associate or networking associate, which is a test that still exists today, and I feel like is probably less relevant today than it even was then. But certifications in the IT field in particular are kind of like made up requirements for employment that barely tell them really show whether or not you know anything, because the practical application and the practical execution of being an IT person has basically nothing to do with the theoretical execution or the theoretical knowledge of computers and networking. And I think particularly the heavily focused on OSI model, which I'll just throw out that name and not really explain it. It breaks down, well, I'll explain it quickly. It breaks down the internet into 8 different layers that kind of would have made sense
What is not there?
like decades before it was even taught to me, but even at the point that the OSI model was being focused on and talked about, it really had no relevance and was more of something closer to a religious doctrine or theory than reality. Now there is very little reason to think from the perspective of the OSI model, as many devices would jump from different layers to different other layers. And at the core of it, of the 8 different levels on the OSI model, any one IT person is only going to work with maybe 2 or 3 of them. The lowest layer of the OSI model would be like the hardware, your network cards. An IT person might diagnose network cards and say, oh, this is broken, we'll have to replace this. But that is definitely not going to be the same IT person who's going to be trying to program the enterprise level routers or the switches, whether they are dumb switches, which is what the OSI model assumes, or smart switches, which is now more what people would probably be using. I don't know if there's anything here I want to do.
My wings and heart cry for blood. Scatter like the blossom. Let me show you how it's done.
And yeah, there might be a 3rd level
Don't be shy.
of handling
See you in purgatory.
actual protocol-based data transfer, in the sense of sending a IPOP or SMPT or SMPT, I forget which one it is, for email. But the person in charge of maintaining or programming a program that would send out email, or maintaining like a Linux server to be a email server, is not the same person that would be in charge of fixing switches or smart switches. Really unlikely, highly unlikely, and almost certainly wouldn't be the person replacing modems in individual PCs. And so while you do need a general understanding of all those things, you don't need the OSI model to think from that. Yeah, I forget what my point was. Honestly, I think that was a rant I just wanted to have, because I thought of that yesterday and I just wanted to have that rant. But yeah.
A pointed sword.
Oh yeah, the main reason why I was getting to this is networking has still not gotten to a level that is reasonable. And sure, I'm running beta software and doing a lot more than most on my router, and most people probably can just plug in something that's like an Apple router. Does Apple even have a router? I don't think they do, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they did release something like that where it's fairly idiot-proof. Yeah. Since I just switched over internet service providers, they gave me a modem that also had a router built into it, and the number of options in that were considerably small, but even at that, not small enough. Nothing is just like super dumbed down and idiot proof. And ideally, with the advent and the renaming of Wi-Fi in particular, you could get to Wi-Fi 6 or 7 being fairly simplistic and easier, but that's only going to deal with the Wi-Fi part. You still potentially have a step forward that needs to happen, and I'm not sure when, if ever, that would actually happen. But if there was a general step forward that took wired networking to the next step of just working better, that would be nice.
No, literally.
One of the things that I also think about networking that has outlived its usefulness in particular is the concept of ports. There really is no reason for ports to exist anymore, and honestly, I'm not sure there was ever a reason for ports to exist. Ports and port numbers, in particular, that's what I'm talking about, is port numbers were designed it for a way for network people to specifically label the type of traffic that was coming through the networks, so that you could maybe optimize for specific traffic or more likely block specific traffic. The entire concept comes clearly from the mind of a totalitarian IT person trying to put control and order around a system that was designed to not have control and order come around it.
Each life has a different value.
There's, once you start getting into DNS over TLS or DNS over HTTPS, you lose DNS as being a
Don't be shy.
port number of any importance, the DNS ports of being anything. Torrents always pick random ports outside of the registered ports, which is the first 1024 ports. And of the ports, the port numbers that exist that are registered, you're mostly only accurately using them using port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, and maybe a couple more ports for just email transfers. And then that's about it. Other ports are going to be used, but they're going to be used by weird software that really are not using the registered ports for the right reason. If you are an IT person, you might be using Telnet or SSH a lot, or FTP, but a vast majority of people won't be. Protocols like FTP are not things that are going to get fallen back onto by new software. So there's been really no reuse of port numbers or protocols.
Bow to me, fool.
So, yeah, you could, particularly when you consider the fact that a port the port number is just data in every single packet or almost every single packet. I wouldn't even dare to think about whether it's in every single packet or not. But it's wasted data. It would make a lot more sense for Internet Protocol 6 to have gotten rid of port numbers. It would have made a lot more sense for IP6 to have done a lot more. Just mandatory encryption on all traffic wouldn't be a bad idea. Elimination of port numbers, improvements on the concepts of IGMP, which is the Internet Gateway Management Protocol, improvements on DHCP, which I think is Domain Host Something Protocol, if I was to guess.
And so our pact is forged.
Yeah, most of the internet protocols and standards of the internet, particularly wired network, don't have much that needs to be changed. But there could certainly be a streamlining of things. There could be an elimination of old things that aren't used anymore and are just kind of pointless. Make people fall back to Internet IP4.
I'll show you power.
And if we have been using IP4 for a very long time now, and they're pushing people to IP6, which even IP6 is frankly not ready for prime time. It's too difficult to really figure out. Yeah, they obviously skipped an IP5 at some point as something that just really didn't even get released for adoption, or didn't get adopted if it was released. Other things I'd say get rid of is the idea of subnets and subnet masks. That has always been a complicated concept that laymen have no reason to try and learn. The idea of specific IP addresses being actually multicast broadcast addresses. Get rid of that. You probably would need some broadcast packets or some way to broadcast things, but it wouldn't really be that hard to simply send a packet to the closest router and say broadcast it from there, because that's how it's going to pretty much work anyways. And at that point you might even add a level of security just by limiting everything down to whether or not the router wants to broadcast things or not.
That was almost amusing.
Which, for the most part, routers can still do that. Yeah, the whole idea of subnets on IP6 addresses are going to be a nightmare, and the whole idea of subnets in general are once again coming from a totalitarian IT guy's perspective of trying to control and limit and label who is where and what IP address goes to what place. And there may still be an argument for doing some of that, so specific ranges go to specific locations. But I think there's probably a better way.
Don't forget to snag some
And I suppose this is the kind of rambling you get when I don't actually play any video games. I would have just been playing Opus Magnum and complaining about Opus Magnum if I had played any games yesterday. Alright, so let's just cover the news. Major Nelson has the week's Games with Golds and Spotlight sale. So, apparently some games are on sale for Xbox. G4 put out a thing as far as where to watch. And the short and long of it is, G4 is going to be a Twitch and YouTube channel first and foremost. And then a day later, it will be... It'll be on... Let's see, I think Verizon's Xfinity is what they said. I mean, it's just a lot. Yeah. The Verizon Fios, Cox, and Xfinity TV the day later. But clearly Twitch and YouTube, Monday through Friday, they're going for a full... like daily presentation, and they've named more shows than I thought they would, but not really a lot, maybe 4 or 5, and then streaming on Philo, which I don't even know what Philo is. There's a list of people here, mainly being Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira from the old day. Olivia May, I think, is from the old days. But the rest of these are new people. They really haven't gotten a whole lot of new people in a while either. Which you had kind of this initial announcement and run of announcements of new people, and then seems like at a certain point they ran out of budget to potentially hire anyone else. I can't help but just assume that G4 is really just secretly funding, and has been secretly funding to try and bring itself back to life more than it was always funded and ready to come back to life. Yeah. I imagine what happened, it feels like almost a year and a half ago, is somebody was able to negotiate and get the name and the likeness and everything under contract or back, so that somebody owned G4 instead of what is it, Paramount TV that was once G4, or I think Paramount TV was Spike TV. Yeah, I imagine somebody got the rights to the name G4, and then has been working this whole time to specifically have the funding to actually turn it into something. The idea of launching a new TV channel, or something that can be a TV channel in today's day and age, is kind of crazy, but it is also kind of what you would need for G4 to really live up to the name G4. It very well would have been better if they hadn't brought back the name G4 and it was just Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira and a whole bunch of new people starting a whole new thing instead of trying to bring back X-Play. There isn't really that much value in the name of Attack of the Show or X-Play that you can just recreate under a different name. And I really have no idea what Attack of the Show really would be in today's day and age. Like,
Hey, let's play.
I imagine it's going to be a lot of people just, a lot of them talking about other people, other YouTubers and other content creators stuff.
Feel my fury. Don't be shy. Ow!
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a show like Attack of the Show that came back today where they're showing videos of events and showing fail videos and just talking about silly videos online. I wouldn't be surprised by modern standards if that pisses off a lot more content creators, and the kind of accurate complaint is put out there that they're just stealing content and being low effort themselves, because that's really all Attack of the Show ever was a fairly low effort experience that was made on the backs of other people doing things or other videos. In fairness, that's what the news is also. And I definitely don't think if there's anybody big enough, like even if everybody who I ever liked at Giant Bomb suddenly became employed by G4, I don't think that significantly changes or improves G4 in any way. And I can't think of any other mainstream video game journalists that they could hire that would improve it. Nor do I think if they got somebody famous like Will Smith, the actor, to do G4, or Vin Diesel, like that would be kind of crazy too. And then there's kind of a problem if you get some of the nerdier people, and that each of those nerdy people have created controversy or people don't like them that much anymore. So, like, Terry Crews is about the only person I could think of. Yeah, I think if Terry Crews and some other celebrities were given kind of a voice to make some content without like doing too much, maybe you could get something there. I could see a lot of celebrities trying to review or talk about games, but I could see a lot of them also doing terrible at that. So yeah, we now know finally what feels like a year and a half later where G4 will air and where its focus will be, but that doesn't really change my opinion that it may just be too old-fashioned of an idea to be brought back. Moving on, I'm gonna have to really burn through this news today. Forza Horizon 5 is Xbox's biggest ever launch day. There's also, I suppose, now a thought that Forza Horizon is the Forza series that is more important because of this success. Video Game Chronicle says Pokemon creators have, quote, thicker skin than many due to angry fans. Exec says. Marker says it's about finding a balance between studio's vision and fans' expectations. Yeah, Pokemon games for kids, I bet they get a decent amount of hate. Although there is a lot of righteous anger, for lack of a better term, against Pokemon, the Pokemon Company, after Shield and Sword really did what seemed like a fairly poor job in both animating and releasing Shield and Sword in its lackluster state with fewer Pokemon than people would have liked, because it forced an issue to go from 2D to 3D, which they did need to do that, but had they planned that better, they wouldn't, at the other side of that, remove a whole bunch of Pokemon because they didn't bother to 3D model them. One assumes that the next major Pokemon game is going to have all of the Pokemon back in 3D models, and they're going to have their different special version transformations that I don't even know. There's like Hypermax transformations or something that were introduced and then removed in Shield and Sword. In general, that's, I guess, mostly an article just talking about Pokemon, because the next Pokemon game is about out. Video Games Chronicle says the Xbox PC app will soon let players choose and browse install folders. This news opens up the possibility of easier modding on Xbox titles. I don't know if this really would do anything. I think this is probably more speculation than reality in the case of Video Games Chronicles, because at the end of the day, unless you told me that up until this point Xbox PC games were installed on an encrypted volume or an encrypted file that nobody could boot into different Windows or boot into Linux and see, then unless that was the case, yeah, that there was just a massive amount of encryption and secrecy around the install folders, I imagine modders and hackers have very easy ways to access the files before then. Now, when they actually get to the files, they're probably encrypted regardless of where they were installed. See, Video Games Chronicle says Twitch has finally launched on the Nintendo Switch. Nearly 4 years after the Switch's launch. And I assume this is mostly Twitch's fault. More. I didn't even know the Switch had YouTube, Hulu, and Funimation. Maybe it is Nintendo's fault. I'm a little surprised it doesn't have Netflix. That would be the one thing I would want the Switch to have, is Netflix. The Switch re-release of Metroid 1 is, quote, clearly finished its claims, according to Video Games Chronicle. Nintendo Insider suggests development was completed over the summer. Take that for what it is, as just a rumor. Captain America and Indiana Jones could be coming to Call of Duty Vanguard, which, okay, whatever. I don't think I'm going to play Call of Duty Vanguard, so I can't really care too much about that. The Playdate has been delayed until 2022. Again, what's funny though, I think the Playdate did release some models to influencers, because they did talk about it and have some in their hands for a few months ago. The Playdate is kind of a terrible device with terrible design around it, but it does have a particularly specific screen that I imagine would be almost impossible to replace, and as a concept, the Playdate is pretty stupid too. So there really is just a whole bunch of stupidity around the Playdate, and it being delayed only adds to that, even though in all fairness everything is getting delayed. Video Games Chronicle says here's the first Halo Infinite Xbox Series X console unboxing video. Whatever. Check that out if you're interested. Bethesda plans to show more of Starfield in the summer of 2022. Full mod support and expanded character creation options have also been confirmed, which, yeah, pretty much has to have full mod support. And probably more character creation options than what you would have seen in Skyrim or Fallout 4. Apparently Activision has apologized and removed a disrespectful Koran appearance from Call of Duty Vanguard. Publisher said it should have never appeared in the game. So this seems like another case where somebody has snuck something in, or somebody didn't care. Yeah, I don't really get the idea or the potential idea that somebody would, that as a corporation, that they would try to gain the ire of Muslims everywhere by intentionally putting that kind of content in. I think it is much more like likely just one artist that did it. If they were just going bold with it, then they shouldn't be so limp-wristed about it and just say, yeah, we did this, and what are you going to do about it? We knew you weren't going to play our games anyways. Call of Duty Vanguard in general is probably at some point, or one of the Call of Duty's games in the next few years is going to center around shooting a bunch of Muslim looking people anyways. Apparently the real problem is putting it on the floor and just including the pages in general. It was not supposed to exist as it appeared in the game. We deeply apologize. Which probably means at some point they had intended it to be on the game, but not for the pages to be on the floor, but for the pages to instead be like somewhere on a table or something. And somebody then just reused the art assets, not knowing what it was. This is also probably just like a reaction to one person tweeting more than anything else. And at the end of the day, Activision Blizzard disrespecting the Quran by putting its pages on the ground does less harm, in my opinion at least, to Muslims than the vast number of Muslim totalitarians out there who are executing and brutalizing other Muslims through warfare and enforcement of barbaric practices.
My wings and heart cry for blood.
And I'll leave it at that. A new Xbox exclusives from Obsidian and Compulsion have seemingly leaked. The details on something called Pentiment and Project Midnight revealed. which honestly I kind of don't even care about knowing about leaks from projects. If they're not ready to show them, there's going to be such little to talk about that leaks are kind of pointless in the video game industry. I would like to see a lot more leaks against corrupt politicians in the real world, or real news revealing things that are trying to be hidden, than leaks of video games that will almost certainly be revealed in their own time regardless. Alright, we didn't get a single victory. So we move over to ranked swordcraft now. Video Games Chronicle says Xbox is definitely making a new 1 versus 100, it's claimed. I think there's a fairly good chance that that's true, but then I also have to question, how is this 1 versus 100 really going to work? Because
I guess you're looking for a fight.
you can't have disconnects. I think that was kind of the problem with 1 versus 100 originally, is that at a certain point it got disconnects, or at a certain point it was kind of hard to even get 100 people in the audience. You probably can't have a live voice actor who is presenting it, which that was something that I believe happened in 1 versus 100 to start with. There was actually a live presenter in real time talking into a microphone as the game is going. Probably can't do that, so they're gonna have to introduce some kind of AI character. There was a very popular show that came out like a year or two after 1 versus 100 that was kind of a radio 1 versus 100 that had a very popular person, and they tried to fire or marginalize that guy, and it died on the vine because people didn't like them marginalizing the character, the host that they liked. Most game shows, I think, do heavily succeed based on their host, or fail based on their host.
Got me feeling hungry.
The real prize aspect, if I'm recalling correctly, 1 versus 100 was giving away kind of real prizes. I don't know if it was just Xbox bucks to buy more Xbox games, but even at the time when that was happening, I would have taken that gladly. But I think it might have been giving away actual cash or something. At a certain point, you need the new 1 versus 100 to come out and last and not just die or be discontinued. You basically need a single player mode for it also, but
too slow.
Yeah, you're gonna have to find the sweet middle ground there where you can continuously have it run, something like Wheel of Fortune or Let's Make a Deal, and both of those have a lot of variety to them, whereas 1 versus 100 doesn't really have that. And then Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is still running, but it's not very popular. The reason this game is coming out is because they want to just like debut and show off their new avatar concept and go in circles basically, and re-up the effort for avatars to be a thing, which at a certain point I'm not sure if the effort to bring back avatars or refocus on avatars isn't 100% around the concept and the hype and the ridiculousness that is talked about as far as the metaverse, whatever that is. At the end of the day, 1 versus 100 also would go pretty well with keeping people to buy
Some things are
the
worth
Xbox
living
Games
for.
Pass. Video Game Chronicles says this is an exclusive to them, but I'm not sure other people didn't just comment or report on this exclusive. Apparently Far Cry's boss has left Ubisoft. Dan Hay has departed the company after 10 years, Ubisoft confirms. Okay. Far Cry not particularly something I would call a success as a series of games.
Are you worth your
I think
weight in
there's maybe
gold?
2 Far Cry games out of 5 or 6 worth playing.
Unbelievable.
A new Animal Crossing's patch fixes a major DLC bug. Fixes the issue when trying to remodel villagers' homes. Check out that article if you're more interested. Take-Two CEO says the GTA series can last as long as James Bond, which last is, I guess, the right term there, in the sense that yes, the GTA series can hang around and it's not going to just magically disappear as long as James Bond has. But although since James Bond has not stopped having movies made about him, then there's no opportunity for GTA to ever catch up. But I guess that would be true for any series that's still running. On the other hand, it's important to realize that it's lasting basically by not making any new content or any new games. Which, I don't know if you'd really call that success.
Too slow.
No. Unbelievable.
I think more people would definitely prefer for the GTA series to release games more frequently and then potentially burn itself out in a decade or two and have to take a break and then maybe come back. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says players are pointing out some of GTA's Trilogy's stranger graphic updates. Yeah. Seems like particularly on the Switch, the GTA Trilogy remaster is not going well. Battlefield 2042 is launched without voice chat, and it's unclear whether it will ever be added, according to Video Games Chronicles.
Get used to this rain.
Assassin's Creed lead writer has returned to Ubisoft months after his departure. Darby McDevitt will once again work on the action-adventure series. Let's see. McDevitt left Ubisoft in March. He wanted to take a new adventure, however, some of him months working at nearby Montreal developer Illogica. So he worked for 7 months somewhere else and then he comes back. Wow, did that not work out? Or maybe he was given a better offer. At a certain high level, that may have just have been salary negotiation more than anything else, where he left the company to make the company realize that they should pay him more.
Unbelievable.
Or it could be a secret suspension. These higher level employees, I don't think they would just come out straight and say somebody was actually suspended for bad behavior, and instead they may have people leave the company and then come back as a way of having a secret suspension. Usually don't cover reviews from Video Games Chronicle, but they do say the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition is a disappointment on Switch. It has terrible performance, crippling what should have been a great collection on Nintendo's platform. That's pretty bad, both on a technical aspect, but also pretty sad in the sense that playing GTA on the Switch would probably be better. Far Cry 6 and Nintendo Switch lead record October for US game sales, games industry sales. And here they have some charts if you want to check out. Video Games Chronicles. And then GTA Trilogy for PC has been locked out for over 12 hours. The players have been locked out for over 12 hours.
Eventually.
And then, because they were locked out for over 12 hours, the game was pulled. Also, data mines have discovered it contains missing music and, quote, Holy Grail developer notes, both of which would be heavy indications that they rushed it to release, and there's really no justification for thinking that they rushed it to release, because it is such an old game.
No!
One step closer to victory.
Mean son of a gun, ain't ya?
Let's see. The Video Games Chronicle says the PlayStation 5 celebrates its first birthday today, and Jim Ryan, the guy in charge of Sony Interactive, says we're just getting started. Which, okay, whatever. I would say, from an outsider and not a fanboy of Sony PlayStation and the PlayStation 5, doesn't feel like in the past year they've really done enough to A, get their hardware in the hands of people, or B, get people particularly still hyped about the PlayStation 5. In all fairness, I never was at a point where I felt like the Sony fanboys and the PlayStation fanboys had a good reason to really try and push people to get a PlayStation. I think there was at least way more lineup when it was Sega and Nintendo in the old days. King of Fighters 15 whip trailer and screenshots from Gamatsu. Whip, I guess, is the name of this character. We still have the blurry videos set up. Yes, we do. The Darius Cosmic Collection Arcade for PC launches November 17th. It's obviously a side-scrolling shooter game. Megaton Musashi Free Update Volume 1 Counterattack Boost Patch launches in December. Demon Slayer has a free update number 2 to add playable demons Susamari and Yahaba, which I assume this is Yahaba, but maybe not. Yeah, I think we'll cover very few games today and just wrap up today because I'm really sleepy, and that's what I figured was going to happen. Falcom is going to release a new Trails title in Japan by September of 2022. Falcom company I wouldn't have sworn was still in business, or maybe, or that anybody was using the name Falcom still.
Got me feeling hungry.
Let's see, The Kids We Were Complete Edition launches December 2nd for Switch and January 12th. 2022 for PC. Idol Mahjong Final Romance R is coming to Switch on November 18th in Japan, which, yep, looks like it's a Mahjong game with anime girls. Cotton Reboot is now available for PC. Surprise release priced at $44.99. That's fairly expensive.
Give me that! Give me that!
The Otome visual novel My Last First Kiss is coming to Switch on November 25th. Otome being young maiden.
Like I'm up.
The Famitsu sales have been updated. So Call of Duty Vanguard for the PS4 made it into second place. Wow, I am actually very shocked by that. I wouldn't have thought that a military first-person shooter would sell that well in Japan, but I guess maybe they do. Meanwhile, that beat out by nearly 8,000 units Danganronpa Decadence, and then Ring Fit Adventures, oddly, back in the top. And then Call of Duty Vanguard for the PS5 would bump it up even more.
Present you a gift from my love.
Then Fortnite's taking number 6. This is a very odd sales week for Japan. Gematsu has a Gran Turismo 7 Tracks developer diary if you're interested in checking that out. I am not.
I bring you the stars. To make a wish come true star for you
Got
too.
some room in style.
Let's see. Babylon's Fall is monitoring closed beta test phase 3 for developers live stream is set for November 15th.
Way.
I guess this is a live stream talking about the closed beta phase test 3. Super Impossible Road launches December 9th for Switch, early 2022 for basically everything else. Haven't heard of this game up until this point. Looks like it's just a
Why am I seeing stars?
physics kind of asset flip racing game. Here we have Kid Amnesia exhibition launching November 18th. This is probably kind of a more weirdo
The uncharted desert awaits.
game. Yep, it does kind of seem like a weirdo game. Maybe there's something here, maybe there isn't. We'll have to wait until it comes out on Steam. Outriders broadcast number 6 is set for November 15th. Marvel Avengers Spider-Man reveal trailer and screenshots are available from Gematsu if you want to check them out. Valis the Phantasm Soldier Collection is coming to the West, which we may have already known that. Mages Makoto Asada talks Anonymous, Code Delay, Chaos, Head, and Noah Boulder bundle, and the Mystery Port, which is really looks like 3 separate games. So these all look like visual novels, if I was to guess. There's just a report talking about several different visual novels. Dragon Ball FighterZ and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 shipments of digital sales have topped 8 million each, which does mean that Xenoverse 2 has sold a little bit faster than Dragon Ball FighterZ, which, okay, that's fairly believable and understandable. Fire Dragon Fist Master Jai Mei has been delayed to January 2022. Wings of Asteria also delayed to 2022. Which at this point, pretty much everything is going to be delayed.
I suppose I've lost some of my edge.
Genshin Impact version 2.3 updates Shadow amidst the snowstorms is launching November 24th.
It won't be long now.
A cooperative survival first-person shooter called Skier Ritual for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC apparently has been announced. Let's see, GameDeveloper.com says Tencent has acquired the Japanese studio Wake for $44 million. yeah, I'm kind of just going to give up at this point and not even try to play one more game. We got nowhere close to the victory, but I'm too sleepy. GameDeveloper.com says, Dan Hay departed Ubisoft. We already talked about that. Game Developer says there's a report that Sony lowers the PlayStation 5 production outlook due to component shortages. Zynga bought up 3 Turkish hyper-casual game studios. Is there a list of what they were called? Apparently not. Not in this article. You can start making your own Playdate games in early 2022, which that was one of the selling points of the Playdate. Alan Wake developer Remedy is going to open a Swedish subsidiary in 2022. Game Developer has an article here, how to make games for the Steam Deck without a dev kit. Which in general, do you have to make games to specifically work for the Steam Deck? I don't think you do. Apple's request to delay the Apple App Store injunction has been denied. What was the injunction? It will allow developers to add links to third-party payment options. The Playdate launch delayed until early 2022 due to a critical battery issue, which, yeah, I could see the wrong component supplier giving you garbage batteries. Metro Dread has already sold over 850,000 copies in the US during October. Assassin's Creed writer Darby McDevitt is back at Ubisoft. We already talked about that. And then all we have, I think, is just games. And it's just going to be a lot of games left over. Like, Bright Memory Infinite is finally available for sale, so I think we put this on the wish list at this point. I can't close the tab unless I was very careful about what buttons I press. So on this Friday, we see a lot of garbage games. I might curate it myself. We see several kind of lewd anime girl games, but nothing particularly too explicit. Again, that big weighted, not waiting until Friday to release them. And then I'm just going to look at my Twitter feed to see if there's anything new that needs to be talked about. And then this is just going to be a short 1 hour stream because I am at high danger of just falling asleep otherwise. And falling asleep in the middle of the stream would be kind of silly and ridiculous. Alright, I'm gonna just assume there's no new news for this Friday, and there probably wouldn't be even if we went another 3 hours. That's gonna be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to further follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below.